Hello, everyone. Welcome to our second session of the day in the developer track. For the second session, we have Yannick Reekmans. I hope I pronounced it correctly. And he will talk about Microsoft Teams and how to handle the distribution and increase reach of applications. All right. So, Yannick, the stage is yours. You have 50 minutes plus 10 minutes of questions.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So, like Joe said, good afternoon. Well, it's 12 o'clock in Belgium. So I'm Yannick Reekmans. I'm an Office Development MVP, and day to day I work as a Microsoft 365 Cloud Solution Architect. You can find my credentials or my Twitter handle and my blog on the slides. Feel free to reach out. You can click through to my LinkedIn and everything. And at the end of this session, I will share my slide deck with the organizers, but I will also put it on my blog as well, so you can find everything over there. Now, one thing for the people that might leave early, Joe does together mode group photos, so please turn on your camera, and at the end I will be giving away some stickers as well. So this is my session. You've got a Microsoft Teams application, and now you wonder how to handle distribution and increase reach. Let's see how we can improve everything over there. So these are our sponsors. Please check out their booths and thank them for sponsoring this event. Without them, this would not be possible. And let's look at the agenda of today first. So this is my agenda. We'll first look at what is a Teams application, a very small introduction, and then how to distribute it to yourself or a small group of people, distribute it across your organization, and potentially even distribute it worldwide, and how you could handle every one of those steps. So it's always good to set some expectations. Today is about all of the various distribution methods and how you can increase the visibility of your applications and the fact that you have custom applications within your organization or maybe even worldwide, and how to improve the trust you want to have between the users of your application and yourself. Today is not about building or how to build a specific Teams application. There are other sessions. I do other sessions about that topic. This is mainly about distribution. Now, I skip one distribution option, and it's about the Power Apps and Power Virtual Agents, because they do something special, and I do not have time to cover that in this session. I will post a link to how that goes in the docs of Microsoft.com at the end on the resources slide. And I will also not cover how to create a SaaS offering for your Teams application, because that's a very specific use case. It's also more complex than what I want to touch on today. So let's get started. Let's start with the Teams application. What is a Teams application? It's a very small introduction because I want to talk about distribution, but you need some basics to understand everything here. Now, Microsoft Teams is a platform. And Microsoft Teams as a platform means that you can install and use applications on that platform. First of all, there are the ready-made applications. There are about 50 made by Microsoft. Think about SharePoint, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Stream applications that you can use in your Teams or your Teams client, either as a personal application or as an application installed in a specific team. But also a lot of third-party applications that are made available in the Teams store today, like Kahoot and the SurveyMonkey that I put on the slides. You can also create some custom applications using Power Platform by creating Power Automates, Power Apps, Power Virtual Agents, and Power BI, either standalone in the full-blown Power Platform, or based on Project Oakdale, the smaller, lightweight CDS environment inside a Teams client. There is also made available some reference solutions that are made available by Microsoft and the community in GitHub, so that you can use to like as is, or to build your own applications, use as an inspiration for your own applications. And then there are the full code custom solutions. Basically, you start everything from scratch. You decide whether you want to build this in C#, ASP.NET MVC, things like JavaScript, Node.js type of applications to integrate with your Teams client. Now, from top to bottom, it increases the level of coding skills you need to create these applications. Makes sense, of course. Now, when we talk about distribution of your custom app, we talk about reference solutions and full code custom solutions. So everything you build yourself. Microsoft also includes the Power Platform applications in there, but I'm not covering them today, like I said earlier. Looking at Teams as a platform, your application uses an interface inside the Teams client, either a tab, a bot, an adaptive card, messaging extension, task modules, or notifications, and it uses a backend for the application. We see Azure being used a lot, but also Power Apps Flow and some SharePoint information there. And it can be exposed on different surfaces. So we already got group, team, and personal scoped applications, but now since Ignite, they announced the availability, or like the very soon availability of meeting extensibility, where you can create a custom application that can be surfaced in a Teams meeting like the one we're in today. It's not out yet. I'm not sure what the timeline is. I believe it's somewhere in October. Now, what is the anatomy of a Teams app? A Teams application, or a Teams custom application, consists out of three parts. The first part is a Teams app, and that's a zip file. For those that are used to creating provider-hosted add-ins in SharePoint, Outlook add-ins, things like SPFX, which is a bit of an exception, but all of those are basically zip files in some form containing some resources. For a Teams application, there are three that are included. Two of them are icons. So you have to provide a color icon, which is the icon that's shown in the store. And you have to provide an outline icon. That's when you pin the application to the left rail of your Teams application, so that it shows up nicely like the rest of the applications. And then there's the manifest file, and the manifest file, it describes all of the features and that your application has and that it wants to expose, and where to find those. There's also the app registration. For some of the Teams applications, you need to register some information in one of the many cloud portals that Microsoft has. For example, for SSO, you have to create an Azure AD app registration in your Azure portal, in your Azure Active Directory. And then the third part is your actual application logic. So the application logic is the code that does all of the work, because a Teams app is just a zip file that points to this application logic. You either have a web application with some server-side or client-side logic, or a combination of both, interacting or being available for as a website for a Teams tab, or you can have a web service, which is basically the backend for your Teams bot or your interactive bot. So these three parts are very important for a Teams application. You need probably all three, at least the Teams app and the application logic, to create a good Teams application. Now, when we talk about distribution, the only thing that we're distributing is the Teams app as the zip file. That's what we pass around everywhere, and that's the only artifact that we're moving from our development environments into the other places that we want to distribute. Your app registration, your application logic, of course, have to be tweaked or adjusted depending on the scope of where your application runs. It's when you distribute your application just for yourself, your application logic doesn't need much scale. It just has to handle the one user. If you distribute it across your 10 people company, it probably will work out as well. If you distribute it across your 1,000 people company, you might need a different backend system or scale up your application logic. If you distribute worldwide, you might need to tweak your app registration to make it multi-tenant application. But that's not what we're talking about. That's a separate part. We're just moving this Teams zip file into the different locations. First of all, when we take our Teams application and we want to distribute it just to a developer, then that's what we used to call side loading. Microsoft removed this term from their documentation. They're talking about distribution of custom apps for one person. So that's what we used to know as side loading. And side loading is a concept of where you take your Teams application and you just install it directly for yourself. One person goes into Teams client, takes the zip file and installs it for him or herself. For this, you need permissions, because in most organizations, this is not allowed. IT or the IT services want to keep control about keep control of all the Teams applications that are installed in the Teams client. So they mostly don't allow people to upload their own custom applications inside Teams. So side loading is probably disabled or should be disabled. It's also my recommendation, should be disabled in production tenants. Now, having permissions to upload a custom app or a zip file inside Teams as you wish, it's a combination of a different or a multiple set of permissions. First of all, it's the user custom app policy or the app setup policy. So it's a policy that you can create in the Teams Admin Center, and it is assigned to a specific user. There's also a global policy available that's by default assigned to everyone. And this custom app policy, or this app setup policy, as you wish, has a toggle to allow uploading of custom apps. So that's one part. Then there's it's combined with the team custom app settings. Every team inside the Teams client has a specific setting. It's called allow members to upload custom apps, and it has to be turned on as well, because otherwise you cannot upload any custom applications or sideload any custom applications inside a specific team. And then there's the organizational-wide app settings, and this is the toggle that trumps it all. This is the custom app setting on org level, where you define whether or not custom applications or interaction with custom applications is allowed inside this organization. Now, these are three options that you can set. So this brings us to a lot of combinations of toggles. And luckily, Microsoft provides us with a table that describes whatever is possible. Now, the first four are quite easy, because if you turn off organizational-wide custom app settings, basically whatever else happens or whatever else is turned on in team custom app settings or user custom app policies, their interaction with all custom apps is blocked for your organization. The only exception can be made through the Teams Admin Center by a Team Service Admin or a Global Admin. They can upload custom applications through the Teams Admin Center. The more interesting or challenging combinations are the four that come after it. It's where the org-wide custom app settings are turned on, and then you have a different combination of the team's custom app settings and the custom app policies. Now, if the team custom app settings and the user custom app policies are turned off, the user still can't upload any custom applications. Now, if you turn off the team custom app settings, but the user can have the upload, the user can only upload an application in a personal context, unless they're a team owner, because a team owner always can upload a custom app to the team if they are allowed by their user custom app policy. Now, if the user custom app policy is turned off, the user cannot upload any custom applications. That's the second to last option. Because the user is not allowed, whether or not the organization allows it or the team custom app policy allows it, the user still cannot do it because he or she is not allowed to do it. Of course, if everything is turned on, it's the easiest one. The user can do anything. They can upload custom apps to the team, whether or not they're a team owner, and they can also upload a custom app in the personal context. So that's side loading. I'd love to show that, but I made a mistake yesterday. in my while trying out all of these settings, and I turned off the user custom app policy, and I turned it back on, but it did remove my ability to upload or sideload an application, but it did not turn it on yet, because apparently there's a 24-hour wait to, or potential 24-hour wait, and when changes to policies are trickled through to the user itself. So my turning off went instantly, my turning on might take another 12 hours. So I'm sorry, I will not be able to show it, but sideloading happens either in the Teams App Store, here, Apps, and it shows Upload a Custom App. Now, if you click on it, there's a drop-down menu that's opened. Sideloading should show you Upload just for me. So that's the option in there. For a specific theme, see, I already created a sideloading theme where I was going to show it. You go in the Manage Theme Settings, you go to Apps, and then here there's a Upload Custom App option, or there should be. In here, when you click, it will pop up a file browser window and you select the zip file that you want to upload in your organization or in your team. Back to the slides. The second part, or the second option, as a developer, you spend months and months developing your application, or maybe 3 days, and it's still an awesome application, and you want to distribute it to your organization, the whole of your organization. So what you want to do there is get this application into your organization app catalog. If you have a custom app that's installed for your organization, which I'll show you how to do that in a minute, it will show up on your screen like built for your organization inside the tenant or the organization app catalog. So in the Team Store, this option shows, when you click on it, all the applications that you made available specifically for your organization will show up in there. As a side step, this organization store can be customized as well. So this is a new feature that has been made available, or at least announced at Ignite. It shows up in some tenants. I've got it in my production tenant, but not in my test tenant. So it allows you to tweak or put some color or branded colors on top of the your organizational store and put your own logo in there. This helps the verification process, the trust with your users, because they know that this is their store for their organization and that what is in there can be trusted by them to use it. Now, before you can put an application in your organizational store, you probably want to do some validation. Built in a couple of tools of Microsoft, there's a validate step which allows you to validate this or your Teams app package. You just upload your zip file into this validator, and then it will tell you which things aren't valid for distribution. It's not strictly necessary for your application to be completely valid to install in your organizational app catalog. It is required if you want to do a worldwide distribution through the official Teams store. So it's a good thing to check this early in your development process and potentially fix the issues already before you distribute it to your organization as well. I'll show you how in a minute in a demo. And then how do you get this in your organizational app catalog? You can either do it through the Teams Admin Center or through the Teams client itself. That's a manual action. I'll show you how that works in the Teams client. So in the Teams client, it goes like this. You go in the Teams App Store, you go upload a custom application and upload for your organization. It drops open the file picker and you select your zip file. You open it and it will install it. I'm not going to do it like this. You go into the Teams Admin Center. Underneath Teams Apps, there's a Manage Apps option. And here you've got an upload button. Same approach, you click on upload, you select the file. It warns you to make sure that you have tested this completely, verify that it's working properly and follows your organization security and compliance requirements. And you select the zip file again. If you select the file, it will put this application inside the list of Teams applications and shows it in your organizational app store. That's a manual upload process. This works if you as a developer or global admin in your organization. I am, so I'm lucky. But not every developer is lucky to be a global administrator, and you might argue that it's not the best security practice either. So how do you get your application to a global admin and let them distribute it in your organization? Well, if you know your global admins, you can reach out to them over Teams and send your zip file over there. But that is a cumbersome process, so Microsoft introduced the app submission APIs. Looking at the app submission APIs, they can be triggered from the App Studio application, which is what I will show, but they can also be accessed from the Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code extensions. So you can find Visual Studio Code extensions in the Visual Studio Code store, and this will also help you with development. And part of that tooling inside those extensions for Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code is the ability to submit your application directly to your global administrators without knowing them. So you just submit your application through the Microsoft Graph App Submission API, and it will show up in the Admin Center for your admins to approve or potentially decline, but you made an awesome application, so they are willing to distribute this almost immediately, of course. So they get that submission, they can review it, and they can approve it. And the custom app can also be centrally managed. So once your application is in the Teams Admin Center, there are central management options like the app permission policies, where you can say who can use your application. So you can limit the usage of your specific custom application to a group of people with the app permission policies. And you can use the app setup policies to automatically install your custom application to a group of users. So if you create a custom app setup policy that you assign to HR, you can say everyone that's get this policies assigned, the people from HR, for them, there will be automatically this application installed in their personal scope. And when we look at the app rail at the left hand of your Teams client, we will pin the applications in this order. So you can change the order of the applications or the Teams apps inside their Teams client. And one more thing, because app permission policies and app setup policies, specifically app setup policies, are only for personal scoped applications. So they're only for applications in the personal scope of the user. There's also a new option added to the Teams Admin Center. It's where you can install an application for a specific team. So a team service admin or a global administrator can go into the manage app settings and then install that application to a specific team. This one as well is rolling out currently because I've got it in my production tenant, but not in my demo tenant. So I cannot show how this works, but trust me that the button will show very soon in your environment. Looking at what we discussed demo-wise, let's start in the Teams client. So in the Teams client, if you want to use the app submission policies, there will be an option in here, submit to the store. I don't know why I don't have it. All the screenshots of Microsoft show it in there, but I don't have it. So I have to go in a different direction. I will be using the Teams App Studio in the Teams client to do this as well. So I've got a custom application for the Collabdays events that will show the events listing of all the Collabdays events inside the Teams application. So if we go to the Collabdays events application and we open it up, for those that are not aware of what the App Studio does, is you can edit your manifest file in here. So as you can see, I created two tabs, the personal, a Teams tab and a personal tab. Now, I want to do test and distribute. So test and distribute allows you to install this application directly into your Teams client, which is also, remember, called sideloading. If I do this, it still doesn't show me or let me do that because of my permission mishap. It allows you to download the package. So this is where you download it and get your zip file. Or it allows you to publish it. Publishing, if you click the button, opens a new screen, and it gives you two options. So it allows you to publish it to your, or publish it for submission to your own organization, or publish it to AppSource, which is the next step. So if we publish this to our own organization, it will be submitted for review by our IT admin. And once it's published, it's only available for you. So let's do that. If I click this and submit, it will use the Microsoft Graph to submit this application to my global administrators. You can follow along on the status and even submit an app update. If you view the status, it shows submitted, and you can cancel the request. So this is what the developer can do in the organization. Now, if you switch to the admin side of things, we go into the manage apps. I have to refresh the page. So if we go into this manage apps page, it shows us that there is one submitted custom app. It's not clickable, which is quite annoying. So you have to go look through the list of all the applications. I know it's called Collabdays, so let me scroll a little bit faster. So it's Collabdays events, and it's submitted. So this is the application that I got submitted to for review by the administrator. Now, of course, you can click on the headers, and it will just sort it, and then you get this. It's easier to get to these submitted custom applications. You can see that I already got another one, which is published, and it's allowed. It's also a custom app. And then there's the one that's blocked. You can allow it from here, or you can open it up, and it shows the publishing status. And this is where the IT admin can decide whether or not to publish the application or reject it. Now, if we publish it, it's now published and allowed, and it should show up inside our Teams App Store. I will refresh and see if this is quick or not. It used to be quick, but you never know with these live demos. And there it is. So this application now shows up in your organizational store. Your users can then find it and just install it either in a specific team in a group chat or in a personal scope. So I'll install it in the personal scope. And there's my custom application showing inside the Teams client. So this is the easiest way for a developer that does not really know their global administrators to get their applications out into the organization. Now, switching back to the admin center, there's also, these are the permission policies and the setup policies. They're in here. So if you look at the permission policies, I only got the global org-wide default permission policies. And this is where you say the specific Microsoft applications, which are allowed. By default, all of these Microsoft applications are allowed. You can allow specific apps and block all others, block specific apps and allow all others, or block all apps for Microsoft. Now for the third-party applications, those are the applications that are published by a third party into the Teams App Store globally. And the custom applications, those are the applications that you have published in your organization. So we can say allow specific apps, and then you have to decide which of these applications you want to allow. So we can allow Collabdays events like this, or there's the SharePoint page embed, which is the other custom application. So if we allow just this one, the other one cannot be used. So that's how you control these or the permission policies on your application. And then you can also assign this global policy to a set of users. So by default, the global org-wide policy is assigned to all users. You can create a custom policy and then assign that custom policy to a specific group of people. With setup policies, like I discussed, you can go into global org-wide policy again. This is where you say if a user can upload the custom applications, yes or no, and if we allow user pinning. Allow user pinning is this feature inside the left rail of the Teams client, where you say that you allow a user to pin this application to the rail, yes or no. And you can force install a specific application like this. And you can also say that you, by default, all users get my awesome application installed in their Teams client. So they will get the activity, the chat, the Teams, the calendar, and everything else by default, but also my specific application, my custom application will be by default in the left rail of their Teams client. If you want to install an application into a specific team, this is also where this functionality will show. So you select this app, and there will be a new button here, Add to Team. So it's coming. If you click on it, you select the team, and it will install that application in that team without interaction of the team owner or team members. So from a central management point, you can push applications to a specific team. So now your application is distributed in your organization. Your users are using it, and it runs very smooth, and it's an awesome application. And you think, well, maybe we can distribute this worldwide. So we want this application to be available to everyone else that's using Microsoft Teams in the whole world. And that's the next step. Take your application and distribute it worldwide. This is where AppSource comes in. AppSource used to be known as the Office App Store. It's now called AppSource. And this is where the distribution of applications happen. And this is how you can get your custom application into the Teams organization, in the Teams global store, application store. Now, what do you need to do? You need to follow the design guidelines that Microsoft puts out for a Teams application. This means you have to follow the general design guidelines. It has to support all of the three look and feels or themes inside the team client, so dark and white mode, but also the high contrast mode. You have to follow the specific guidelines if you want to do a Teams tab or a Teams or a bot. So there are specific design guidelines for those as well. And you have to follow those because otherwise you will not survive the review process with your application. And you also have to meet the validation policies. So there are a set of validation policies like the manifest validation and the app detail validation, but also some very general app source validation policies. There are a lot of links available. They provide a lot of instructions that you can follow. So it is easy to follow along. It's not easy to comply. It takes a bit of work to make sure that you comply with all of these policies. So specifically for the app manifest, that's the validation that I will demo in a minute. For the app detail page, it's the page that will show in the Teams store. So your icon has to have a certain size. You have to provide screenshots or a good description for your application in the manifest file of your application. So all of that is quite important for the discovery of your Teams app anyway, but it's also important to get your application inside AppSource first. So when that's done, or when you've got that covered, you have to create a developer account in Partner Center. So you have to be a Microsoft partner, create a developer account, and when you've got those, you can submit your application to AppSource through the Partner Center. When that's done, when you submit, you have to provide testing notes and credentials. So Microsoft will try out your application and will validate if you follow the guidelines and if you've done everything correctly. So it's important to follow all the previous steps. Microsoft also has a FAQ available, like all of the tips or frequently asked questions or things that gone wrong frequently. So you can make sure that your first submission is as good as possible already to the AppSource. And when you've got your application submitted to AppSource and approved, your app will show up in the global store, together with all of the other third-party applications and the Microsoft applications that are available there already. So you can be used, or your application can be used by everyone that's using Teams. Now, there's one more thing that you can do. Well, three more things. It's the Microsoft 365 App Compliance Program. So your application is in AppSource, but that doesn't really inspire trust. Well, to a certain level, because Microsoft has approved your application or reviewed your application. There's a certain level of trust already because it's approved by Microsoft, well, reviewed by Microsoft. But there are three more things you can do to increase the trust relationship between you, your application, and your users. The first one of those is publisher verification. It's currently a preview program where you get verified as a publisher. So all of us probably have seen this consent dialog in some form where you want to use an application and it needs a certain set of permissions, for example, from Microsoft Graph. This pop-up shows, and it shows the organizational name or the application name and the organizational name. In this case, Contoso Test App and Zawad.co. Now, with publisher verification, you can improve the screen to show your organization name and this verified checkbox next to it, verified badge next to it, and a link to your organization. So publisher verification is a good way and a very simple way to get your application trusted more by your users. It shows the check mark. They know that this is a verified publisher because you have to do some steps as well to get as a verified publisher. They all happen through AppSource with domain validation, and you need an MPN ID. So that's a first additional step you can take to increase the trust relationship. And then you can also go through publisher attestation. Publisher attestation is a self-assessment. So this is a very long checklist with over 100 questions about how your application and you as a company do data handling and privacy handling, but also our security and compliance. So what's your approach there? And once you filled in this checklist, it will be published publicly and attached to your Teams app. So I will show you how you can find this as well. But this is an overview, or this is a checklist or a set of questions that you as a developer can answer to increase the trust relationship with your users. This publisher attestation is currently available for Teams applications, but also for Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Outlook add-ins. And in the future, they announced the same thing to be available for SPFX add-ins as well. And then the last, most comprehensive certification is the Microsoft 365 app certification. It's currently only available for Teams apps, but it will be available for all of the other add-ins as well in the near future. This is where your application goes through a third-party assessor. And that third-party assessor will not only take that publisher attestation checklist and verify that you answered it honestly, but also will validate security and compliance of your app, but also of your organization. So it will check if your app and your organization are security and compliance aware, and go through a lot of steps. When you've gone through this and you got the certification, you get an actual badge awarded, which is also shown in the Teams Admin Center. So I've still got 10 minutes, so let's switch to some more demos. So first of all, I want to show the validation process. I do it through Teams App Studio, but it's also available as a website or in the Visual Studio Code extensions. So you go into the App Studio, there's this validation tab, and you can do the Teams app validator. I say that I want to upload my manifest package. I'll find the zip file. It will load it, and it will go through a lot of tests. So you see, it checks if my website URL is HTTPS, if the privacy URL does not point to the beta environment, if your privacy URL must not be hosted in a different domain than your company or website URL, things like that. There's one test that fails in my particular case, and it's the fact that my outline icon is not transparent, and I need to fix this. It also shows you some information about your application, like the version, the manifest version, who was the publisher, what was the package name, the application name, and when did you run this validation. Besides that, there's also the preliminary checklist. This is a checklist that you can run through before you submit this to the app source as well. So this is a self, you don't have to do this, you just trick it. You tick it and it doesn't do much, but it helps you follow along to see if everything is correct for your application before you even go to app source. And then there's a whole lot of more checklists that you can go through specifically for app source. Back to the Teams Admin Center to show you the publisher verification, or specifically publisher attestation and Microsoft 365 certification. So if we sort on certification and I go the other way, so you can see that Confluence Cloud and Trello, a whole lot of those applications already have publisher attestation done. So this means that their company have filled in the 100 question form. And if you click on it, it will show you all of the questions and whether or not they comply or what they do with this. So you know how well this application complies with the checklist. So that's the publisher attestation. Please remember that this is done by the developer. So it's a self-assessment report. It's like what they state here. Microsoft makes no guarantees regarding the accuracy of the information. Then you've got some of the applications that are Microsoft 365 certified. There aren't many by default. So you've got Adobe Sign, for example, is Microsoft 365 certified. It is a very intensive process to get your application certified like this. So it's only the bigger applications or the bigger companies that went through this already. If you look at this, this is security and compliance, but you can also check the general data handling categories. And this is, it has been reviewed by Microsoft against industry standards. And so Microsoft verified the developer's claim of compliance with the reasonable and effective practices where applicable. So it's not a coverall blanket here, but at least Microsoft has verified the most of whatever they can verify of these claims of the application. Last thing I want to show is a new capability that exists in the Teams Admin Center as well, is the ability to view the permissions that an application needs. So you can check the details of the permissions and you can review the permissions and consent them directly from the admin panel. This means if you know that all of your users will be using Confluence Cloud, this application, you don't let them go through the permissions dialog one by one, but you just approve it for your, with admin consent, you approve it for your whole organization all at once. So this brings me to the end of my presentation. I want to thank you for joining and walking through this with me. if you've got questions, we've got about 14 minutes left for questions until the next sessions begins. You can also find me on Twitter and on my blog. I will post the blog, slides to my blog as well. And don't forget, I do a sticker giveaway. So there is a small form you have to fill in where you give your opinion on my session, and you get a chance of winning a set of stickers from PYOD, so Pimp Your Own Device. I include 2 by default: licensing, killed, or user adoption, and I hate stickers. I don't do stickers, so that's the one that I distribute to everyone. I have no stickers on my laptop, so I'm the exception in the developer community apparently. And the one for licensing is because I don't like the licensing of Power Apps, and I hope they change it very, very soon in some way. So that's the one I'm providing by default, and you have the ability to pick 2 of your own stickers as well. So you get 4 stickers from me, and they will be sent to you directly from the sticker store. Lastly, I put the link inside the chat, by the way. So lastly, there are the resources available. I'll put the sponsor slide up while I answer any questions, if there are any questions. So feel free to unmute or post them in the chat. Please don't let me fill this void for another 12 minutes by myself. No questions?
Okay, apparently there are no questions, but I have one out of curiosity. Have you ever went through the process of submitting a Teams app to the store?
Through AppSource?
Yeah, through AppSource.
No,
yeah.
well, we tried and it was not that successful. So we're in the so it's not an easy process. It wasn't.
That was
easy.
My experience.
Yeah, so it wasn't easy at the time, and we gave up because it wasn't. We had an application that we wanted to distribute, and well, it was a tryout to see if we could potentially make money out of distributing this application, but the process was not very streamlined yet at the time. Now with the publisher verification attestation and the app certification programs, a lot of the blockers or hurdles are being removed or like eased. So I hope this gets easier soon, but I'm not sure. I haven't tried it recently again.
Yeah, I managed to submit one successfully last year. Well, the process started in October 2019, and it took 3 months back and forward with Microsoft, and was awful. The experience was awful. I was wondering if something had changed in the meantime.
No, so it's easy to submit, but it's not easy to comply with their guidances. So they have a lot of requirements about having a test account to test it out, to see if everything works. So they need an admin and a user. But if you've got multiple roles, they want multiple accounts, but they don't state it up front. So you have to provide multiple accounts for each of the roles. The licensing have to be applied for, I believe, 90 days, but they, so 3 months, but they tend to leave the review process for 2 months before they even start, and then the licensing expires, and then it's your problem and stuff like that. So yeah, I know it's not the best experience, but if you want to be in the Teams App Store, that's what you got to go through. I'm sorry.
So
there's nothing else.
Has changed since last year.
Nope.
All right. Good. Very good session. Very good.
Juliano, did you have a question?
Me too. I have had a very painful experience to publish my application. Finally, after three months, but yeah, it was crazy. They complained about also the message, because my application is a bot. So they told me about to change and adapt also some text that was more friendly, or so it's very, very crazy. But and the validator was not available when I submitted my app, but I hope that the process will change in the future.
Well, they've got now a whole big document or guidelines on let me see, submission checklist here. So it's all about the validation policies. So you can use the validation tool, but it does not do everything yet. There are like the app source validation policies. These are the commercial marketplace. You have to do the specific ones from Teams. You have to go through those as well. This is also one that's quite annoying because your app needs to support Windows 7, Edge 12 and later, Chrome 51, and I believe Chrome has now 80 or something as a version number. iOS 9, which is not even supported by Apple anymore. So, yeah, it's not fair because they're not supporting those in their applications, but we have to support it in our applications. So this is the big list. You have an app detail page checklist. I saw a lot of people being rejected for these as well, because you have to provide screenshots, you have to put everything in here. But the problem is that it's short description. Let me see. It's a Markdown setup. So you can use Markdown syntax, but it's rendered differently if you do a tenant or an organizational scoped application and you render it in your own store, as opposed to how it's rendered when it's distributed by Microsoft. So they go it doesn't render correctly. And you can't see that because their rendering methods are different between yours and theirs. So that's, I know, it's a painful experience.
Yeah.
But yeah, we gave up in the end. It wasn't worth it for this application, at least, to spend all of the time in there.
Yeah.
And they got this. So next time, tips and frequently failed cases. So they've got a lot of stuff that they reject frequently. So go through this so you can, and it's a long list. So all of the things that they reject on a day-by-day basis. So you can just make sure that your application at least complies to those already, because otherwise you're dead in the water at the beginning. Okay. Another 6 minutes. More questions? I do see people wanting stickers. So I see that the form has been submitted. At least 3 times, and I've heard 2 questions. So there's at least one person in this call that listened to the session and might have questions. No one? Okay, I'm not gonna stay like the game show host that tries to convince people to come up and ask questions. So I'm here. Find me on Twitter, find me on LinkedIn, send out any questions you don't want to mute yourself for, or post in the chat. I'm happy to answer them or help you out if you got any issues with your submission in AppSource. Just remember, it is a painful experience. You heard it from 3 people. If you think through it, if you really, really want to do this, but it's a good thing to get your application out in the world, get visibility. It's the best place to be if you want. It's the only place you can be if you want your application to be used by the rest of the world. So you have to go through this not so nice process.